Salvete omnes. This is Abbey Latin Liber Primus, chapter 17. This is exercise B of chapter 17. We are to parse the following Latin verbs, telling the person, the number, the tense, the voice, and the mood, and then giving an English translation of the Latin verb. Starting with number 1, mitto, from mitto, mittere, misi, misus. So mitto is the first principal part and therefore the first person singular. So the I verb form, present tense, active voice, and indicative mood. I send, I am sending. Number 2, mittor. Mittor is the first principal part, mitto, plus the r, the first person singular present passive indicative. I am being sent. I am sent. Number 3, mitteres. Mitteres is the second person singular. It's got the res. Now check out that E in between the present stem mit and the res. Remember, mitto, mittere, misi, misus is a third conjugation verb. You can tell by the O, R, E, us of the principal parts. Therefore, the present stem is the first principal part. Chop off the O, mit. And it's got the E, R-I-S in the present passive indicative. Second person singular, present passive indicative. You are being sent. You are sent. As opposed to number 4, mitteres, which is the second person singular. Notice the macron on the E. So present stem mit plus the eris, long E-R-I-S. That's the future passive indicative. You will be sent. The difference between mitteres and mitteres, the present and the future. Number 5, aguntur. Aguntur, that is the third person plural present passive indicative of they are being done. They are being dealt, or they are being dealt with. They are being acted. Agentur. Agentur is going to be the third person plural, untur. Notice the E between the present stem ag and the entor, where number 5 had a U and it was present and passive. Number 6 has an E, it is future and passive, agentur. Third plural, future, passive, indicative. They will be done. They will be acted or dealt with. Number 7, positum erat. Positum erat is third person singular. You can tell by the erat. And because it's a compound verb form, it's got the fourth principal part plus the helping verb erat. The imperfect of sum is the helping verb for the pluperfect passive indicative. The gender is neuter. It had been placed. It had been put. Number 8, defendant. Defendant, unt, we got unt. It's not the present, that would be defendunt, unt. This is ant, the future, es, et, amus, etis, ant. So it's a third plural, they, future, active, indicative, they will defend. As opposed to the number 9, defendunt, the third plural, present, present tense, active voice, indicative mood, defendunt, they defend, they are defending. Number 10, ponam. Ponam is the first person singular future. Notice the for the future. Future, active, indicative. Ponam, I will put, I will place. Number 11, we have statuette. Statuette. That's going to be the third person singular. It has an et ending, not an it, but an et. So it's going to be the future active indicative. They will establish. They will set up. They will, or he will decide. He, she, it, third person singular. He, she, it will set up, establish, or decide. As opposed to number 12, statuit. Now, statuit could be third person singular present active indicative. He, she, it sets up, establishes, or decides. It could also be the perfect, third singular perfect active indicative. He, she, it set up, established, decided. 13. Statueris, statueris, macron over the E. So it's going to be second person singular future passive indicative. You will be set up, established. You will be decided. 14. Ponar, ponar, that R, A-R, present stem is pon. That R is the future passive, first person singular future passive indicative. I will be placed. Remember, the future passive endings for a third conjugation are R, A-R, eris, like this, eris, and then etor, amor, emini, entor. 15. Surgetis, surgetis, present stem is sur plus etis. The present would be surgitis with an I-T-I-S. This is future with an E. E, es et, amos, etis ent. Surgetis, second plural, future active indicative. Ye will stand up. Y'all will rise. Surgimus, surgimus has the present stem sur plus the I. As an I. So it's the first plural present active indicative. We are standing up. We are rising. We do rise. Wincitur, wincitur, itur. Got the present stem wink. And then itur with an I, letter I. Wincitur. It's not wincator. That would be future. This is wincitur with an I. It's third, it's singular, it's present tense, it's passive voice, and it's indicative mood. He, she, it is being conquered. He, she, it is being defeated. Someone is winning over them. 18. Wincator, present stem wink plus etor, eris, etor. Amor, emini, antor. It's the third singular future passive indicative. He, she, it will be conquered, will be defeated. Vicit, number 19, vicit, the third principal part of winca, vincare, vici, victus, so weak. Third singular perfect active indicative. He, she, it conquered, defeated. And then gessit, gessit, from gero, gerere, gessi, gestus, is the third person singular perfect active indicative. Gessit, he, she, it, waged, conducted, carried on. Optime, very well done. That concludes exercise B of chapter 17, and you are now ready to move on to exercise C of chapter 17. Valete omnes.